Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live, Work, Shop, Play Show, and welcome to the Joe Mullins Show and a beautiful weekend. And today I've got a very special guest with me. I have got Mike Feldbauer. Mike is one of the few that get out there and fight for recovery and addiction and the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation. Mike, tell us a little bit about who you are and what the Drug Foundation is.
Well, Joe, thanks for having me on here. You know, we go back a long ways, and I got involved in the drug court program. I'm a volunteer on the drug court team, and then I got involved in the Drug Court Foundation, which is a nonprofit to help people in recovery, particularly those in the program, in the drug court program, with things that the court can't help them with. So we're out there helping people through their way of recovery, encouraging, giving them hope that they can have and they can change their lives. And that's what it's all about.
Now, that's how you and I met, going through the Drug Court Foundation, me running for office, and us becoming friends. It was an issue that the county, we were number one in suicide in the state of Florida. We were one of the top-rated counties for overdose deaths.
Yes.
And it was because there were no services here. And you and I got together. We started talking and collaborating. And, as an elected official or a person running for office, I was attacked because I was a friend of Bill, or I was a guy who went through drugs and addiction. Mm-hmm. But we showed the community what better way to fix a problem than have a person that went through that problem that has been successful in addressing that problem. And I was able to do it because of programs like the Drug Court Foundation, like the rehab, like AA meetings. But I've done a little different style. Instead of keeping this stuff quiet and transparent, even as an elected official, I was very open and put it on the forefront.
And Joe, that's what drew me to you, because I knew that we needed people with a voice that you had to let our community know what's going on. And they kept things quiet. Well, you weren't very quiet. And
no.
I'm happy for that.
No, because a lot of people with the drug addiction turned around and wanted to say it was because of their economic situation. It was because of abuse. It was because of, they could choose better as bad choice. But when I got in it and started being public, I killed the economic thing because I grew up in a very prominent family. I killed the abuse thing because I wasn't abused. I didn't have that as my story. I just had a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. And someone said one day, here, try this drug. And you work with these people in this foundation to show them there's three options, basically.
Yes.
There's jail or incarceration, there's death, or there's treatment. And you work with them to understand this third option's a lot better than the first two.
Yeah, our whole philosophy is you can't recover if you're dead. So we want to do what we can to keep you going until you get to that point. I always tell people when they talk about my support for Joe, when he was in the political arena here, he was one of the few people in the whole political arena that actually cared about helping people that had mental illness, the homeless situation, and certainly people in the world of recovery. So that's why I backed him. That's why I supported him. And that's how we became friends.
Yeah, I've always appreciated that, Mike. And, it was a very scary time. One time, just to tell the story before we met, I ran for office in Georgia, and I had a guy on the radio similar to Flagler Live, just a blogger that personally made it his vendetta to attack me, said because I didn't come and ask him to run, that he would not support me. So he brought up a lot of my challenges that I had in my life for recovery, things that got me to recovery. And I remember knocking on doors, and I was scared to death to knock on the doors at that time because I said, somebody's going to open the door and they're going to know what I went through. They're going to know that I did drugs. Oh my God, they're going to know that I did cocaine. Yeah, I said cocaine. I couldn't say it back then, though. I'd always be quiet. And I said, well, I did other things too. And today, and what I learned from working with you guys is own that, own it. But I remember a very big mentor of mine, Ron Cross, who was a county commissioner, said, Joe, you didn't win this election. I just don't think your past is going to allow you to escape it and be able to do something like this. You might have to look for something else. Play the tape forward. I come to Flagler. I meet you guys. I'm talking. I'm going around knocking on doors. And I realized in my recovery, I was in the era where people were very ashamed to come out and admit they needed help. That was part of the tool that the devil used to keep you in recovery, to keep you in abuse, because you're scared to acknowledge, you're scared to look at another man and say, hey, I need help. I got a problem. And I can't control it. So you're scared of it. So when I went through treatment, I said, if I'm going to survive, half the staff said that I would not make it a year in recovery. They just said, he's not going to make it. This guy's going to be dead. First of all, he's done too much. And I did an extreme lot. I mean, I was one of those that if you ask me to do something, I'm going to go full speed and do it 100 times more than anybody else is doing it. So I did a lot. And I remember them telling me, one guy sat down with me and he said, Joe, the only way you're going to make this work is you're going to have to do the exact opposite of what you did when you did drugs. I was really good at hiding it. I was really good at not telling people. I was really good at disguising it. So I thought it was my own world. I mean, people knew I was a wreck. They knew something was going on because I wasn't reliable. But I took that mentality and I said, you know what? If darkness makes my addiction stronger, lightness will bringing it to light will make it weaker. And I apply that. And when I ran for office because of you and Pastor Solano, I'd have people, I'd knock on those same doors. And when they come to them, they go, well, I read a lot about you. And because the bloggers started attacking. And I looked up and I remember telling one of them one time, I said, you know, I've read that stuff too. And I think I'm going to go with that version because I'm 8 years in recovery at the time. I said, I'm 8 years in recovery. And I said, it probably was worse than what they're saying. And he started laughing and he said, I like you. You own this. And I said, well, I got no choice. I did it. I own it. And it's who I am.
We have another organization in our community, a young lady who's been in recovery for quite a while now herself. And she runs a little business that says, sealed lips destroy.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing that you're talking about. We've got to get out and let the community know what's all about. We've got to encourage others that are in the world of recovery. We have to go change the attitude of the public. You know, one of the biggest things that we work on in the drug court program and as the Drug Court Foundation works is trying to change those attitudes, okay? If they keep telling you, Joe, that you're going to be nothing, that's it. You're going to be just a bum. You're going to be a crook. You're going to do everything wrong. After a while, that's all you hear. That's what you become. We got to do the opposite. You know, medically, and it took me a long time to understand these things too. Medically, addiction is a disease. Now, do we treat other people in disease with that same? No. The reason we treat people in addiction with that kind of bad attitude is because they get themselves in trouble with the law to get what they need to keep going because they don't have a way out. No one's helped them get out. Now we need more people to help them get out. I don't think you've ever heard it, and I know in the 13 years that I've been involved in doing this, I've never heard of one addict say that's what I wanted to become.
No. As a matter of fact, I did not want to do that, and I fought hard, and I remember waking up every day going, God, please take this away from me, and crying, but I didn't understand how to do it. I didn't understand that it was an addiction. I thought it was free choice, and I kept saying, well, I keep making the free choice. I didn't realize that I had a medical issue of ADHD. I started doing cocaine that calmed me down, and it made me relax and feel normal. And after I did it a certain time, it would turn around and make me wiry. I remember going into treatment and the guy said, well, you're using cocaine as a drug to calm your ADHD. And I said, I am? He goes, yeah. I said, well, what do people do? He said, a lot of people take Adderall. I said, oh, good, I can take Adderall. He goes, no, more people are in here and addicted to Adderall than they are cocaine. And I said, what do I do? And he taught me things like mindfulness, calming, going out, staying productive, being transparent. So, you know, half the staff said Joe Mullins is not going to be able to stay in sports and entertainment and remain sober. He's going to parties, he's going to events, he's going to baseball, football, basketball, concerts where everybody's drinking like mad. He's not going to be able to stay sober. I remember going to a Lady Antebellum debut that I was involved in when I worked with them while I was in recovery. The doctor looked at me and said, try this Antabuse. And I said, well, what is Antabuse? He said, well, if you take it and you drink, it makes you soil your pants. And all I know is I went to that event and I saw the alcohol all around me. I had just been 30 days since I had my last drink. And I looked up and all I thought about was, I cannot do that in my pants here. If everybody would be, I'd be embarrassed. So whether it does it or not, it sold it me mentally. And I turned around and realized at that point, I needed to be transparent. So when I go to events and concerts, and I've remained 14 years sober in one of the biggest party atmospheres that you can do, but how I do it is I tell people all around me, I'm in sobriety, I don't drink, and I don't want to do that. And they become my biggest advocates to help me defend myself from people coming up and going, come on, Joe, have a drink with us, buddy. I mean, you think about it, Mike. If you go to work at a courthouse and you have alcohol on your breath, something's wrong with you.
You betcha.
If I go to work and I don't have alcohol on my breath at a
Something wrong with
sporting
you.
event, something's wrong with me. So it's, I was set up for a big challenge. But by being transparent, having friends and accountability people like you, Pastor Solano, being open, talking, I've been able to come out and win an election after I went through addiction. I've won 3 more elections since then. I was Trump's, people don't realize it, I was Trump's Republican delegate voted on by the region. I was his voted delegate for 2020 and 2024. I also have been offered appointments to federal positions that I've looked at. All of this with a past that people said, if I came out and admitted it and asked for help, I'd lose everything.
The thing, I think, the biggest thing that most people listening, hopefully listening to this, that are going through what they're going through and afraid to be open and honest about it is that you're not hiding anything except from yourself.
Yeah.
And I relate back to my problem, which was cigarettes. 2 packs a day. I quit 6 times, relapsed 6 times, and every time I relapsed, I'd lie about it. Now, if you lie about relapsing and smoking, you're not doing anything because you stink. Okay?
Right.
The whole world knows about it.
That's like getting pulled over and saying you're not smoking pot when the aroma comes out. You can't hide pot.
No.
You can't hide
No.
that smell.
So there's a benefit to not lying, not putting yourself in that position. And once you learn, and it doesn't come easy, as you'll know, it doesn't come easy to be outward in letting everybody know what you've been through, done. But then it becomes easier and easier, and it becomes very effective in helping others. The AAs and NAs, they have their place. But, okay, that anonymous part has to get to a certain point where it's no longer anonymous. You got to be out there, because how are you going to help being totally anonymous? You can't.
You can't. Your addiction loves that. And I used to tell people, they go, are you a friend of Bill? And that was the code word to see if you were in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd look up and go, no, I'm a child of God. And God's forgiven me for this. I've forgiven myself. And we're moving on. And I want to help people. And when I ran for office, one of the biggest things that I said is we bring recovery to light here. We had a massive homeless problem here behind the library. I went in, opened that up, showed it to people. And I remember people saying, well, this is their choice. And I said, no, their decision-making is what's got them in the situation they're in. They need help. I said, I was given free choice and it almost killed me. I needed help. And I remember the day the blogger decided he didn't like me anymore. I had a Bible sitting on the dais and he came up to me and he said, you can't have that here. And I looked at him and I said, hey, man, I used to pick and choose where I put God in my life. And I used to say, okay, he can be here during this time, but he can't be here during my sporting events, matter of fact, Monday through Saturday, I didn't need God. I had my own agenda and I was partying. Matter of fact, I was embarrassed and ashamed to have God because what I was doing. On Sunday, I'd go in and repent and I'd say, okay, give me all of it back, God, and start it all over again. Well, that doesn't work that way because you're not genuine. You're not doing it. But I remember having that Bible there and he said, well, you need to move it. And I said, listen, you don't want to know me where I pick and choose to have this Bible in my life. That guy is not a good guy to know. It's not a fun guy to know. It's not a good person. And I said, if you want some stories, you'll get some stories at that point. But I said, you'll also get some things that make you go, holy cow, I'm staying away from him. And I said, this Bible is very crucial. It's more of a sentimental thing to me to be able to know that when I look at it, I've got to live with God watching me. And I've also got to play that tape forward. I got to think about what my action this moment does, what impacts it's going to have 6 months, a year, or 2 years down the road.
You also have that ability to look at that book and say, God helped me.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
isn't it crazy how 3,000 years later, this book is still answering problems that we deal with? I mean, we got all this technology, all this advancement. We can't solve the problems that the Bible solves. There's no other way to solve it but go to that Bible.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I kid with people all the time. I said, I've been in business for over 50 plus years myself, and I said, it's the best business manual that you can do. I said, it can't teach me math. And somebody says, well, some of the numbers they can teach you some, but it can't teach me math, but it can teach me all the principles, how to live up to it, how to guide my business, because it's all there. Okay, you don't need another book.
Yeah, it's if you think about it, that book for 3,000 plus years has been answering the questions that man continues to bring up. It's never gone obsolete. Pagers, we've seen disc players, we've seen CDs, we've seen pagers, we've seen telephones all go obsolete. All this technology go obsolete, but that Bible still stands strong as today as it was back then.
You're 100% correct. And I'm hoping that it gets stronger and stronger because I know it will help anybody. Okay? It's one of those things. I mean, I'm outspoken when it comes to that issue. I read through the Bible and I see the stories, both old and new, of salvation, of lives being saved, destruction being restructured. I see Jesus healing people that could never be healed. Yet we still have to tell people you can be healed of addiction, because a lot of the support organizations say no, you can't. You always have to be in that. Yes, if he can raise the dead, I think he can heal an addiction.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen overnight in most cases. I do tell the story that one of my good friends up north, he was terrible. I mean, he was drinking, drugging, just running out on his wife, all these kinds of things. And it got to a point in time in his life, I don't know what triggered it. He was in the hospital for something else. He was watching some Christian TV program, and he gave his life to Christ. That was the last day he had any drugs, any alcohol, or any device action. It happened on him overnight. Now, that's the unusual time, okay? Because it takes time to get bad. Sometimes it takes that same time to get good. But it can happen either way. God healed them immediately. Jesus healed them then, and then he healed some as they went. The healing process is going to be there. You got to want it. You got to accept it. You want it and you accept it, it's there and it's available to you.
You know, it reminds me of 100, the road out here, not 100, I'm sorry, US 1. And it's like starting in St. Augustine and you're going all the way to Volusia and you're coming through our county and you're running down that road. And every day you're just running down that road and you're exhausted. When I finally surrendered and got in the chariot that God had kept sending me to pick me up and keep me from running down that hot, overgrown vegetation road that was tearing my life apart, the best feeling in the world was when I surrendered and I said, okay, it's done. It's done. It was like getting off. Just, I challenge anyone, walk in the middle of summer down US 1 and see how far you get before you want somebody to pick you up or you want some water being God's choice, and you're using whatever to get you there. It was the best feeling of relief when I finally had something that I could rest in. And I realized I didn't have to play God anymore. I didn't have to solve my own problems. I didn't have to get frustrated because I couldn't solve those problems. I didn't have to get mad at myself and call myself a failure. Those things all ended for me when I went up and did it. Also, when people said, hey, your last election that you had in Flagler, you didn't win. I go, that wasn't me. That was God. I knew that was coming. I felt it. I felt God was pulling me for a different purpose. But as the typical addict I am, I don't want to listen to God. I want to do it my way. And I wanted to stay in there and I had my own plan. And I can't tell you how wonderful things have been since that moment. So anytime you feel like you got failures or you failed something, you got to remember those are setups. You're getting set up to do something very big. And I love, just like our shows, getting out there, getting the voice, getting the people out there. The Joe Mullins Show would not be what it is today had it not gotten that kind of attention with a crazy Ferrari video.
I
But
wasn't going to bring it up.
no, but I own it. I don't have a problem. Listen, hide that video would be like me hiding that I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol. It was a part of what happened. And when you look at it, you go, how did something so innocent get spun so around? Well, that was God. God was trying to direct me and get my attention to move me to a different place. And I was very comfortable sitting where I was. And when I moved, I realized greater things were in store. Mike, as we wind down here to the hour, I want to thank you for joining us. And this subject, there's just so much more. I'd love to have you on again. There's so much more to talk about. What are some parting things that you could tell a person that's struggling with addiction or a family member that's dealing with addiction? What is something that you could share with them that you've seen throughout your years of working with the Drug Court Foundation?
I think the key thing, Joe, is we got to keep instilling that there's hope, not to give up. We don't know what it's going to take to get to that point for the person in addiction to make that own choice that I've had enough. I don't want to die. And family members need to know that the addiction isn't what they think it is. I remember hearing a pastor talk to a very large church, so he knew what he had in those bodies, okay? Because typically 10% of wherever you are is involved in some fashion. And he said, when your kids are stealing from you, they're wrecking things, banging up whatever, remember, that's not your kid. That's the addiction.
Right.
Okay? And there's hope. There's hope to have a good, solid life. It's what keeps people like myself and others that are in the world of recovery helping people. It's what keeps us going. Because if we didn't see the positive things that can happen if people hang in there and get and work in that recovery, then we'd all give up. I tell people, it's like being bipolar. We see all the great stuff happening in the programs that we're in, but then every once in a while we do get that phone call. It's not bad. It's, there's things happen, but you got to keep hope. And our organization came up with a logo that says hope. It's HP, H period, O period, P period, E period, helping our participants excel. And that's what we're all about.
I love those acronyms, and HALT is one of them: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Be careful when you're one of those three. But how can the listeners, if we've got our listeners and they're struggling with addiction, or they've got a family member that's struggling from it, how can they, or if they see an epidemic in their community like they do, how can they reach out to you and your organization to get some direction?
Simple way to reach out to me, and in most cases we will try to redirect them, because we're limited in what we can do as an organization. We're not a treatment people. We mentor, we help people in a variety of ways, but we can direct them to other organizations locally or a little further away. So you can call me at 401-864-6997. My email address is first initial M, last name Feldbauer, F as in Frank, E-L-D as in David, B as a boy, A-U-E-R, @gmail.com, and we'll be glad to help in any way we can.
Mike, I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to remind our listeners, addiction, it's not something to play around with. It's very, very dangerous, especially today with the fentanyl and the other levels of drugs we're seeing. Programs like the Drug Court Foundation treatment, those aren't free. You've got to support them. You've got to get in there and make sure they're offered. Government needs to take a more serious look. As an elected official, it was something that I helped open up and bring to the light in our community to get us from number one in suicides to way down that list. It was one of the things you want to be far back on. But if you are struggling with it, or a loved one or a family member, please reach out to organizations, reach out to Mike, reach out to treatment centers. Do not give up. There is hope. I've got 14 years in recovery. Mike's got many years. Reach out and go out and ask for the help. It is there, and it can do it. And also remember, the one biggest tool you're going to have is a relationship with God. Go out and get Jesus. Pray to him. Know that you can do anything with him. And we are so fortunate to have programs and organizations like the Drug Court Foundation. Remember, we're going to keep Florida the greatest place to live, work, shop, and play, because we're going to be the model state to show the country how it's done right. Have a great weekend.